So you went out and got a welder, you set it up, you got it dialed in pretty good, did some practice welds on some different things, different thicknesses. You're thinking about some projects you want to make. This video is going to be geared towards some welder maintenance, some things to look at and look for to keep your welder working just fine. Hang out for a minute. Alright guys, back in the shop. So you went out and bought a welder. You're getting it set up. You're practicing your welds. You got some projects you're thinking about building. I've had this welder for over 20 years. I bought it brand new. There are things I keep track of, regular maintenance I do to make sure it stays welding really nice. Make sure it stays in good shape. I'd like to share those things with you so that your welder can stay working good for you for as long as possible. So this is the first welder I bought. Millomatic Challenger. A little bit about setup. When you're getting into your welder, pop this cover open. Got your spool of wire and it feeds through. This little spring tensioner here is pretty important. The way I set this up, the way I was taught to set it up, was to have it all the way loose and pull the trigger on your gun so it starts to try and feed. And you slowly tighten it up until it actually grabs hold and feeds that wire. Now this is very important because whenever I've had this set up too tight, as soon as a wire gets a little tick in it and it stops for a split second coming out the other end, it'll bird nest right here because it'll be too tight and it'll be force feeding it through. It'll cause it to literally turn into a bird nest right here. It'll just keep feeding and it won't go down through the tube. Might look cool for a little bit until you have to go clean it up. That, my friends, is a pain. It takes time. You got to make sure when you cut this wire that it doesn't unspool off of this. When you're putting this spool of wire on, you want to keep that tight. You don't want to let it unspool at all. Because what will happen is it'll unspool a little bit. Chance of one of those wires going over top of the one next to it is pretty good. And then your welder's going to fight to pull wire off that spool. So when you put the spool on, keep this wire real tight, feed it through, clamp this down, put that little clamp down, put this on, and loosen this up all the way. Pull the trigger on the gun and tighten this up little by little until it starts to feed. As soon as it starts to feed, you're good. What that'll do is it keeps it from being too tight. If the wire gets stuck in the tip of the welder coming out, it won't bird nest right here. It'll let these wheels spin on the wire until that wire comes free and it'll feed more through. Now right on the other side is where the hose comes out. It's a very important hose. It's a very expensive hose. This hose carries your gas for your shielding gas, and it carries a wire inside a liner. And see how this one, it's pretty old and it's starting to come down pretty straight out of here. I should probably figure out a way to hold that up a little bit. Keep that at more of a smooth transition. If you kink this hose, the liner inside it that holds your wire, let your wire feed through, it's not going to feed through anymore. You can get just the liner, or you can buy the whole hose. The whole hose is expensive. The liner's fairly inexpensive. But then you got to feed it all through, cut it to the right length. It's a pain in the butt. The best thing you can do is take care of this hose. Don't step on it, don't kink it, and try not to let it hang at too much of an angle. I should probably figure out a way to hold this one up. It's just getting old and gravity works. So you want to keep this at a nice smooth angle. When you're welding on something, get your gun on the other end. You don't want to have your gun have this kinked over. It's going to cause too much resistance for your wire to go through there. And it's not going to feed properly. It's not going to feed at the proper speed. You're going to wonder why it's sputtering. Keep all your hose, even if it's on the ground, in a loop, not a sharp kink. You'll notice a difference when you're welding. Moving on to the end, where your nozzle is. This you want to keep clean. If you can see in there, it's got some buildup around the edge, and the tip is looking a little crusty. This either slides off or screws off, depending on the type of welder you have. Mine slides off. I believe most Miller welders, this just slides on and off. Really easy to take off. Pair of welding pliers. You take, put them in there. Clean all that junk out of there. Keep it nice and clean. So when the gas goes through, it flows straight through. Doesn't have to get past a whole bunch of globs of old weld. Next thing you're going to want to look at, this tip. Now this tip is disposable. You'll run through them. This one probably needs to be replaced. What happens, as the wire feeds through here, it wears it out on the inside. Now your wire has to make contact with this tip to weld onto the metal. That's where it gets its connection from, that tip. So if the hole where the wire is coming out is too big because it's been wearing out from the inside, it's not going to make a good connection and you're not going to get a good weld. So every once in a while you want to look at that. If it looks kind of crusty like this one, probably time for a new one. Now these tips, they're pretty easy to change out. You want to run your wire out just a little bit. See that ball at the end? It's not going to want to fit through here. Run your wire out. Grab your multi-purpose welding tool. Snip that off. Unscrew it. Slide it off. Difference between a new one and a used one. You can see the tip. This is much more flat. If you can see the holes, you can tell they're different sizes. One's been used a lot. That hole is going to get bigger. Now when you go to replace these, you want to find the right size tip. It has the wire size written right there on the side. I use 023 wire, so you get 023 tips. And they'll sell multiple different size tips for whatever wire you can buy for this welder. They'll sell the correct tip for it. I think this welder uses 023, 030, or 035 wire. So I can buy all three of those tips to fit it. Take your new tip, slide it on, screw it down, just like that. So on the other side you got your ground. It's not a major problem child for the most part. You can get a ground that's a clamp, you can get a ground that's a magnet, so it'll just stick to the panel that you're welding. Matter of fact, I have one right here. It's full of grinder shavings, but you would just connect your wire or your cable to the end back there, grind off a clean spot of metal and stick it to it. It's a piece of brass right there. Make your connection. I prefer the clamp. It's the one it came with. It's what I like. But it's kind of up to you what you want. Just a good thing to keep it clean. Don't abuse it too much. It'll work for you. Now, one thing a lot of people overlook is you're using this machine in a dusty environment. There's dust floating around, dirt floating around, grinder shavings floating around, everything. These vents here on the side, in the front, in the back, have a fan going to keep this thing cool as it works. Well, that fan sucks air in one side and blows air out the other. So if it's sucking dust and dirt and metal shavings, metal particles in one side, it's going to get stuck somewhere up in here. It's going to accumulate in there. What you want to do, every once in a while, every couple months, take an air hose. Make sure your welder's turned off. Blow air through here. Blow air through the front one, the back one, all the sides. And you'll see that dust pour out of that welder. Even if you think you work in the cleanest shop out there, you do this, you're going to see dust fly out of it. That's going to keep that fan working good, keep all those parts inside clean. That dust and that dirt, it forms like an insulated barrier for everything in there, and it lets it heat up more. You keep all the components inside your welder clean and dust free, they're not going to heat up as much. That's going to save the life of your welder. Make it last a lot longer. If you don't have a pair of these pliers, I suggest you get them. I only know of one company that makes these, and that's this brand. It's Welper, W-E-L-P-E-R YS-50. I'll try and find an Amazon link and put it in the description so you can link to them. I don't remember how much they are, but for a welder, they've got all the different parts of it you'd need. You can clean the tip by sticking this in there and moving it around. Take the tip of your welder off, cut your wire, the nozzle. If you're mid-weld and it's getting crusty in there, you need to take it off. It's hot as hell. Fits right in there, clamp down, twist it a little bit, pull it off there, clean it out. They're really good pliers. Maybe there's an off brand that makes them, I have no idea. But I do like these pliers. If you're going to be welding, keeping up on your welder, I would definitely suggest getting a pair of these. Like I said, I'll try and find an Amazon link, put it in the description. You don't have to buy it from there. Maybe you find them cheaper somewhere else. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you use that link to buy them, it might get me a penny or two here and there. So we'll wrap this video up, guys. Take care of your welders. They'll take care of you. They'll work for you for a long period of time. This one's really old. I don't notice a bit of difference in its welding capability. Just the same as the first day I got it. Keep them clean, keep them maintained. You'll have a welder for a long time. Now, if you're not a subscriber, click that subscribe button. Hit that like button, help this video get out there. Leave a comment. If you'd like to see me do something on my welder, like to see me weld something specific, leave a comment in the comments section. I'll get to it if I can. Till next time, go make something.